Welcome to Signals and Stories.
I'm Kelly Miller.
And I'm Robin Legasic, and we're your hosts.
This is the podcast where we unpack the signals that are shaping our industry and the stories that are shaping us. We're going to kick things off with a segment we call Landscape Pulse, where we dive into the topic of the day that Robin and I discuss. We then bring a guest on who's an expert in the area and finish the podcast up with Hot Takes and Headaches, my favorite segment.
And on today's episode, we will be discussing the evolution of audio in the marketing landscape. Our guest is Heather Gordon, and she started her career at Chum Television. From there, she moved to Bell Media on their entertainment properties and worked at CBC in digital sales. Today, though, she is the managing director at Acast, and Acast is the world's largest podcast marketplace.
Okay, how about we dive into Landscape Pulse then?
When we zoom in on the marketing landscape right now, I feel like audio is definitely having a moment, and maybe not necessarily in the way that people are expecting. It's no longer just an ad channel like it used to be. We're seeing it become much more of a very strategic part of a marketing plan or a media execution. Um, because traditionally, radio was very much a very specific role. It had a retail-driven reason to put it on your plan. It's very frequency-driven, very buy now, urgent messaging, reminders, very tactical in its nature. But what's changed really is how consumers are consuming audio and how we can measure it.
Mhm.
And it's not perfect yet, but it's come a long way. We have pixel-based tracking, we have brand lift studies, we have attribution models that are improving, and audio isn't being undervalued the way that it used to be.
Yes, and with this shift in measurement, it's allowing us to look at audio across the funnel, which is a really different way of perceiving it, especially when we think about podcasts when there's high attention and low distraction. And that is a very unique position for it to be in when we look at across a number of channels and media activations. That's a really rare value. And we talk about the attention economy all the time. And it raises a question: if attention is a currency, how are we valuing this in media activations and in advertising overall? And when we compare it to things like social media, where attention is very fragmented, or even traditional media that we used to really value, like linear TV, where we thought we really had that audience's attention, it's changed a little bit because that audience is on devices as well as watching TV at the same time. And this really opens up a unique space for the podcast world and how brands can interact and play in that space, because podcasters are influencers and they can have a great impact in their audience and the messages they're receiving. And if brands can lean into that and use podcasters that are related to their brand, there can be a great influence there. And the podcaster can deliver things in a really authentic, genuine way, which really opens up the doors for great partnership opportunities where a brand can be seen, heard, and have that attention towards it. With that in mind, I think it's a great time to bring Heather in and talk to her about these issues as well.
Yeah, agreed. I'm excited to have her here. Thank you so much, Heather, for joining us today. We're very excited to have you here. You're the managing director at Acast, and I would love to sort of kick it off for you to tell us how you got to where you are today.
Absolutely. I began my career at Chum Television. That may be familiar to some of you and maybe not so familiar. So when I got out of college, I was a bartender at the Phoenix nightclub in downtown Toronto, speaking of high heels. And I desperately and passionately wanted to work at Much Music and City TV. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do within those walls. So I began volunteering in a brand new division called City Interactive. Not to date myself, but this was the launch of the websites, muchmusic.com, citytv.ca. So I worked on a volunteer basis, bartended till the wee hours of the morning, and got my butt into the chair Monday to Friday every morning. And then gradually that led to a small salary, and then gradually that led to an office coordinator position, and then to a sales assistant, to sales rep, and it just evolved from there. And that began my career in our beloved media industry.
Mm. And about your current role at Acast, can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing now and how that's come to be?
Absolutely. So just very quickly after Bell, which became CTV, after Chum, which became CTV and then became Bell, I moved to the public broadcaster for 5 years. And it was at the public broadcaster that I fell madly in love with podcasting.
Mm.
The CBC does lots of amazing things, but audio and storytelling are one of the best things that they do.
They do.
And very quickly, I identified what a powerful, engaging medium it is. And then because of my history in ad sales, my mind instinctively goes to, why aren't we better monetizing the efficacy of the ads that we did place in there, the attention, the lack of clutter compared to the other CBC properties with which we represented. So that includes linear, that included streaming video, display, all of it. It was just so comparably uncluttered. And then, of course, as I said, once we started seeing some of the results, I was convinced. I was like, this is an underserved medium. This is a powerful medium. This is a medium that I think can change the way we live. So I took that bet when Acast came into the market, which is about almost 6 years ago now, that's what I wanted to do full time. So that transitioned into what is my role now as managing director at Acast. And what I oversee is our business that finds Canadian creators, podcast creators, brings them onto the Acast hosting platform. We have a team dedicated to building audiences, finding new audiences, utilizing our 140,000 podcasts to cross promote and build more traffic for our podcasts. And then the other piece of our business is the monetization piece. So we want to help artists in Canada make a living. Nothing makes me happier than when one of our podcasters who maybe did podcasting as a side hustle, Christy Lee from Canadian True Crime is always a great example, because when I met Christy 5 years ago, she was doing Canadian True Crime or recording Canadian True Crime from her closet. She had a day job. She was in the media industry. She took a train into Toronto each day to work. And now she is a full-time podcaster, has a studio in her home, and has a staff. And it's so rewarding to see someone that isn't so in love and passionate about their art and their craft make a living. So that's what I oversee in Canada. And it's a fantastic job.
It's incredible.
It is incredible. And I mean, she is an incredible example of a success story in the industry for sure. What have you seen in terms of evolution over the last 5 years in the podcast industry, and especially when it comes to any kind of innovation? I'd love to hear about, what you've seen work, and maybe some of the success stories are great, but what what have people learned, or what hasn't gone so well also?
I have examples of each. I'll start with the evolution. So when I began, it was very much an audio platform. You had the feed, and that's what we monetized, and that's what we've sold. But gradually over the years, we have seen that podcasters have actually more influence over consumers than influencers do. And I'm using influencers and quote unquote. When we think influencers, I think people typically think TikTok, Instagram, whatever. There's a 5% differential. So podcasters are 5% more influential than influencers. So that became apparent when our podcasters would build out social media channels. So if you like my podcast, follow me on Discord, follow me on Instagram, and we could take that long form content, cut it up, make it small, snackable. So we just naturally started the evolution of adding social channels into our packages to advertisers. If you want, we'll just stick to the Christy Lee example. If you want Canadian true crime in long form, maybe you want that audience across multiple platforms. So what we're selling now is more of an omni-channel solution. And then, of course, even more recently, video. So no conversation about podcasting right now can exclude video.
Mhm.
A lot of our podcasters are adding video or are launching podcasts with video. I'm going to use Christy Lee for the last time and say she is one that will not use video. She is an audio storyteller, and that's what she's passionate about, and she will not change. Adding video adds a whole, as you know,
Yes.
a whole new complexity.
Yep.
Now it's, you've got to cut and edit. For video, it's much easier to cut audio when there's no visuals to line up. You have the additional cost of adding a camera. You have makeup. You have hair. These are all things that they are a reality. Like Mark Maron, he just wanted to be behind a microphone. And adding video to his podcast, he believed fundamentally changed the podcast. A camera just changes things. It changes how we show up. It changed how I showed up this morning, except for my shoes, which you can't see, but they're terrible.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? So it is a very different game when you add video. Those are the biggest evolutions, and we at Acast are partnering with Spotify and Apple Video on their launches of video. We monetize YouTube now. So from a sales and partnership and marketing perspective, Acast has so much more to bring to the table for our clients. Because again, if you want, let's say, Terry O'Reilly and Under the Influence on this platform, maybe you also want him on his socials and everywhere else. So that is sort of a lot of evolution in a short period of time. And then your second question, one of the things that I believed when I began at Acast was that if you were let's call it a celebrity or someone of influence or someone recognizable, I was under the impression that that would equate to instant audiences. So I won't name names, but we did partner earlier in my tenure at Acast with a very prominent person in Canada. The huge status, huge influence, beloved. And we launched a podcast in partnership with this person. But the core topic theme around the podcast was not aligned to this person. So they didn't want to play in their own lane. And that's fantastic. Play in the lane you want. This is what podcasting is for. If you've got a lot to say and maybe your career isn't in talking per se and having longer conversations, a podcast is a wonderful way to be a different part of yourself. Like when you look at say a smart list, you kind of feel like all three of those podcast hosts are kind of themselves. I'm sure, to a certain degree, some of it is their persona, but you kind of feel like they are three funny guys in real life, and they're being three funny guys on a podcast. But podcasting is also another way to see a different side. And I'll use Mark Maron again. Mark Maron is very much a comedian. If you've seen any of his live work on Netflix, on wherever, or actually seen him do stand-up comedy, he's very funny. He's this, that, and the other thing. And that sort of crotchety persona does come across in the podcast, but he has real conversations with people that are not always around humor. He's very introspective about a number of things. He's admittedly insecure, and he has conversations about it. I mean, he had everybody from like Obama to huge actors and actresses, and comedians that were very, very real. So sorry to bring it back. Podcasting isn't a slam dunk in finding audiences. It's a very, very hard medium to find audiences. It's not like television where you have a lead-in at 7:30 that with a guaranteed massive audience that if you just are right behind it in the TV schedule, you're guaranteed a certain percentage will hang on and that will introduce you to the audience. That doesn't exist really in the same way with podcasting. So that was the biggest thing I learned, was that audiences are not guaranteed for anyone. And again, there's 100 examples like a Smartless where that doesn't follow that. They are very popular. Amy Poehler is another one that is very popular, and launched a comedy podcast. But again, those are aligned to who they are and what people expected of them. And if you are trying to do something unexpected, which is what we try and do with advertising, give people something unexpected, sometimes it doesn't always work. And that holds true in podcasting as well.
It's a really interesting point about the audience and audience identification, because a lot of what we do in media is really uncovering specific audiences for brands, right? And how can we attract them, be on the right channels, and find that right mix where it's going to really resonate. So I'm thinking about the podcast space and what you're talking about, where podcasters can be influencers and also hold these unique audiences. Where do you see brands entering that collaboration with podcasters really well and creating a really sort of genuine, authentic experience where they can relate to, their core audience in a different way through a podcast host or something like that?
That's a great question. So when we work or sign up or onboard any new podcaster, we work with them and they have a list of no-fly zones or passion points. So we want to know right off the bat what brands you love, what brands do you want us to contact, and which brands are no-fly zones. And by that, I mean, I'll go back to the Mark Maron example. Mark is a recovering addict. So we would not entertain any conversation with any alcohol. That is where the authenticity is lost immediately, and nor would he accept it. If you are a vegan or vegetarian, we are not going to align you with, a meat board, for example. And so we work very closely with our partners, with clients, and we work very closely with our hosts. And we know, after working with our podcast for a while, who the right brand alignments are. And if we get a brief from a client, we have a pretty good idea of who we want to engage and talk with and brainstorm with. And we can actually bring clients together with the right podcast host to get the right content, the right style, and make sure the podcaster is delivering your brand message, but in an authentic to them manner. And it's maintaining that authenticity. That's where the great numbers and results come for in podcasting, because I generally think people know when someone is reading a brand attribute that doesn't feel authentic to them. And we have lots of podcasters that turn down deals. Again, Christy, she will, if it doesn't feel like it is aligned to her personally, she will decline it. And that is where and why she has such loyalty with her audience, because she won't lie to them. And that means turning down revenue, and she'll do it. And she's not the only one. And we encourage that, because we want to keep and maintain what is so special about podcasting. I've worked on a number of mediums, and I know the struggle for revenue and increasing ad loads and adding another, not to date myself, but another big box to the page. I know, I understand it. But it's to what end? And we've managed to maintain something special with podcasting.
There is different approaches to that advertising too. There's, host-read integrations, as well as sort of scalable programmatic advertising within the space. You touched on a little bit about, being authentic as the way in, but do you think there's room for a balance between those things for advertisers in the space?
Absolutely. So one of the beauties and one of the things I love about Acast is I described to you what we do in Canada. There are Acast offices all around the globe that do the exact same thing for their territory. So, Germany, France, Australia, Sweden, US. So all of those markets are doing the same thing. They're finding creators in their market, bringing them onto the platform, and helping them build their audience. So we in Canada sell all of those listens that land in Canada. So we actually have a ton of reach when we combine uh, Giggly Squad's Canadian traffic, TED Collective's Canadian traffic, The Athletics Canadian traffic, all The Economist, sports, Peter Crouch, if you're a footy fan, like just every genre all around the world, anything with that Canadian audience, we monetize in addition to our homegrown Canadian. So we actually do generate a lot of scale, and programmatic and just buying that reach is a very smart and easy way to get involved with podcasting. And we have many clients that just execute with us programmatically. We have a lot that layer on. So here's, a blanket campaign, and we have all of the targeting that you'd expect from any digital partner. So geo categories. So if you're just looking for mothers, if you're looking for sports enthusiasts, whatever you've got, we've got a category for it. So we can deliver media campaigns, and then we can layer on that host-read sponsorship element, which are also dynamically inserted. So you can, put them in, take them out. So that many different ways. And then, of course, the branded content is a whole different layer. And we do everything from creating episodics for clients. So we'll work with, say, Birds Papaya. Do you know Birds Papaya? Sarah Nicole? So she's a podcast of ours. So right now we have her creating a 20 to 30-minute episode for a finance client that will live in her feed. So it will live as an actual podcast episode. The content of the podcast will be Birds Papaya, but with a brand flavor. It's not going to be a 30-minute ad read. It's not going to be a 20-minute list of benefits. It's going to be likely how managing finance in Sarah Nicole's home looks like, and how this particular brand helps facilitate, keep her on track, plan for the future. I'm just making, like, that one is actually happening. I don't know what the content's going to be, but that's what I would assume. So we did one with I'll give you an actual example, Starbucks and Cat and Nat. So Cat and Nat, both mothers, both lived at Starbucks with the youth of their babies growing up. They would go in, this is probably not uncommon for a mom, toss the kid into the stroller, you need to get out, as we do, they would take them into Starbucks every day. The barista would know their order. It was a moment that they could be out in the world, know somebody, have a chat, sit down, enjoy a coffee, and they made a 30-minute episode about those moments and how just having that in their life was a grounding, wonderful thing in motherhood. And then that lives to this day within the Cat and Nat feed. So
Good example of the authenticity you spoke about earlier.
totally.
And that storytelling for a
and
brand too,
storytelling.
right?
Totally. And it was all true. Which was the authenticity part of it, right? And that's where we come in to work with the brand, find the creator, find the story, find alignment, and execute something special.
So, one of the things that we have to work with our clients on often is how to measure the impact of the different media choices and marketing choices that they're making. They have so much scrutiny on their budgets to prove out ROI and ROAS. So, I'd love to hear some perspective from you on how you help with that in the podcast space.
Good question. So historically, a lot of that has been done by custom URLs that can measure if someone's taken an action on a specific message. Now, most of what we do involves pixelation. So we attach a pixel onto your ad, and that measures whether an action was taken. We also work with a number of partners on post-campaign reports, like brand lift studies, for example. And we have a number of ways that we can do that. That solution requires a minimum investment just because you need a certain amount of impressions to make the data sound. But I think the reputation that podcasting isn't a measurable platform is outdated, and it's changing, and a lot of our clients lean into those pixels to prove attribution.
Yeah. Um, Thank you. I think that's helpful for clients to understand that they do have measurement options, because I think sometimes it comes from a place of not even understanding what's available to them.
And it hasn't in the past, so it behooves the podcast industry to make sure we're doing a better job in educating and letting everyone know what is available.
For sure. And I think also when we think about podcasts or audio, we often think about the B2C play. So finding the consumer and having a product available to sell through. I think there's also space for B2B. And I'd love to hear from your perspective, is that something that's been evolving? Is that growing in podcasts?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said at the beginning, the medium of podcasting is so ingrained in people's lives that there is a podcast that serves everyone. Depending on your objective, you can talk to your clients, you can talk to potential consumers, you can talk to fans. There is nothing and no category that podcasting cannot be a solution for. The one thing is audience numbers and having realistic expectations of what a podcast can deliver in terms of listens. But if you are a B2B client looking for that solution, just be measured in what you can anticipate the traffic will be, but you have to think about what one listen actually equates to in terms of value and having somebody spend 30 minutes within your space.
Mhm. Interesting. We see brands, investing so much of their marketing dollars into the walled garden systems of Meta, Google, Amazon. And how do you see within that ecosystem podcasts competing or even winning for some of those marketing dollars?
Yeah, it's a very good question. We at Acast believe in the open ecosystem for podcasting, at least, which means that our podcasts are available on every platform everywhere, which is sort of the antithesis to the walled garden. And we know how much of clients' ad spends typically go to the walled garden, the clients you just mentioned. So it is a big challenge, but the amount of creativity and the brand building and just the value of what podcasting can deliver is making clients sit and stand up and realize that they can no longer afford not to have podcasting within their media diet. I mean, we do touch walled gardens. So if you are a Spotify app listener and you listen to an Acast podcast, the ad you will hear will be sold from Acast. We do have a partnership, and we will be selling into YouTube. So we do get in where people consume podcasts, so we are actually a part of it, but we're also very much our own accessible platform as well.
So I part of what I love about doing this podcast is we get to talk to people who are passionate about what they do and passionate about this industry. And that, I think, comes through very clearly when you talk about it. And I'd love to hear more about maybe what you're excited for in terms of the future and the future of the business and the future of the industry.
Oh, lots. One of the things I'm most excited about is live events. So bringing that podcast fandom into the real world, bringing our podcasters out from behind their microphone or their camera and bringing them into the real world and creating opportunities for our brand partners. So we're working on a number of packages that will involve audiences. So ticket sales, live event, think a theater, brand sampling opportunities on site, signage, the creators live, unedited, and creating something unique in front of a live audience, which, as I'm sure you can imagine, is slightly different from a closed off studio where, your
A
practice,
whole other layer of complexity.
a whole other layer of complexity. And I'm going to tease one thing that I'm working on right now that I'm so excited is um, we're bringing two very well-esteemed podcasters together for a podcast crossover, mix-up, mashup. I can't say who, and one of them's not even on Acast, but they're two very prominent with very two different content lanes. But there is a place where those lanes collide, and it's in that space that we aim to make something very special. And we'll be looking for a sponsor or sponsors to be able to help us bring this to a live audience, so we can record it, edit it, and this special mashup, I guess you would call it, will live on both podcasters' feeds. And to my knowledge, I haven't seen it done before. So it's that kind of stuff that gets
Cool.
me jazzed.
I like that. I'm gonna rewind to something you talked about earlier at the beginning with your history. And you were really clear about you knew you wanted to go into this space and you were gonna bartend and you were gonna get in there no matter what. And then moving forward where you are now, I like what you said about bringing together sort of your knowledge around broadcast with this new storytelling environment, which feels like it's led you to a great fit for your career right now to bring all of those things together. But any advice you'd give to your younger self when you think back on some of this?
Yeah, this is my husband. My husband says this to me all the time, and he's so right. Only take the yeses personally. Um, it's a long road. You're gonna have a lot of no's. You're gonna face adversity. Um, and when I look back, I wish I was kinder to myself. I look back and think of sleepless nights on things that I can't even remember what they were, but I had sleepless nights on things, stuff, internalizing. And when I look back and can't even remember them, again, my husband always says, "Is this going to bother you in 6 months?" And I'll say, "Probably not." And he's like, "Well, there's your answer. Let's go for a walk." So that would be my advice to my younger self and to younger selves out there. Be kind. And could I give another piece of advice?
Of course.
Um, Build your network and be kind to people before you need them. Because it's hopefully a long road in your media career.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I do. I'm going to take a little bit of a hard pivot because I know that you are also a children's book author.
Yeah.
And you have published 2 books so far. And I would love for you to tell us a little bit more about how that came to be.
That's a good question. I'm married to a novelist, so I think I'm surrounded by the storytellers, and always had this idea in my head that I wanted to write a kid's book, which isn't uncommon. You hear it all the time. And then while I was at the CBC, something just took hold of me, and I felt compelled to do so, and I'm not quite sure why. Um, and I imagine I think there's an artist in all of us. And I think things happen when you grow up that may quash that artistic quality in you as we, aim and strive for things and want to acquire things and do all that. We may lose touch with that artist in us. And I think for some reason I had a calling to do something creative. We're all in the media business. We know days fly by. We know sleepless nights that we just talked about. And I think I yearned for something that was my own, that sort of itched that creative scratch, if you will. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for
Mhm.
sure. Yeah, it's incredible. Good for you.
Final question.
Yeah.
What podcast or podcasts, maybe it's more than one, do you have in your library right now that you'd recommend?
Oh gosh.
What's your favorite thing to listen to right now?
I have a steady media diet that I listen to frequently. So I'll check out The Daily, Canada Land, Under the Influence, Canadian True Crime, all fabulous storytellers. I think podcasting makes me smarter.
Mhm.
Um, and I will always brush up on a few news podcasts before, going out for a dinner, or before starting my day. I like to know what's going on. I have a number of guilty pleasures. I love CIA and agent stories. So I just finished The Sixth Bureau, uh, which is about agents. Yeah, I love it. I have a guiltier pleasure that I believe in Sasquatch. So Sasquatch Chronicles is
All right.
my favorite guilty pleasure,
Gotta
which
add that to my list.
it's embarrassing, but there it is. That's my big expose is I love Sasquatch Chronicles.
Don't we all love like a little bit of, we're going to get smarter and learn some new things, and then we're just going to
Also
have the
have
guilty
some
pleasures in
fun,
there. Yeah.
guilty pleasure, turn your brain off.
We
Yep.
have to have fun, right? I don't know. I believe in the Sasquatch.
Yeah.
That's my thing.
Thank you so much, Heather, for being here. I really, really enjoyed our conversation. So thank you. We will definitely want to maybe have you back in season 2.
Yes, I'd love to.
When hopefully we make it there. And
You will.
all right. So up next is going to be hot takes and headaches.
Okay, and for our final segment, hot takes and headaches, this is where our producer Meg is going to rapid fire some questions at us to answer.
Okay, starting off, Robin, video or audio podcast?
Ooh, I'm an audio podcast girl. I like to listen in my car.
I'm also audio because I'm usually doing 20,000 other things at the same time, and it's great to have in the background. So I'm almost always audio.
Got it. Okay, Kelly, favorite artist or music genre?
I'm going to say I don't have a favorite of either. I go across a wide variety of genres and artists in almost a scary way, how big of a difference it is from one end to the other. But, I think that's the nice thing about music, and it's personalized to you and sort of evolves over time. And you end up in a space with a good collection of things.
For sure. Robin?
Yeah, I say the same. I have a very wide variety of taste when it comes to music. So much so that, yeah, it would be hard to follow. But I would say I love, like, my go-to when I'm driving and have a long road trip is typically country or 70s, like yacht rock.
Okay, interesting. I would love
Mm.
to see your collections one day. Okay, Robin, podcast worth listening to besides ours?
Hmm. I listen to quite a few different podcasts. I love the Canadian True Crime podcast that we spoke about actually on the episode today. And I also like Not Gonna Lie with Kylie Kelsey. I find her to be very endearing, and she's sort of my guilty pleasure.
Kelly?
Yeah. Similar to my music taste, I go through a wide variety of things here. I listen to a bunch of business and news. I like How I Built This, where brands talk about how they grow. That's super interesting. I've got Diary of a CEO in that mix. And then I do the girly stuff too, like Giggly Squad in there.
Love Giggly Squad. Okay, next question, Kelly. Radio, satellite, or streaming? Preferred listening?
I'm gonna go streaming. I like the personalized approach that it has, where I can listen to what I want for the mood that I'm in.
Robin?
I listen to all 3, to be honest, and it depends on my mood and where I'm at. There's some really great radio stations and radio hosts. I do like talk radio as well because I find that it can be very interesting and very topical and local to the city that you live in. But streaming obviously can be a great choice when you want to kind of lock in on something in particular.
Okay, last but certainly not least, best jingle of all time, Robin.
Ba-da-ba-ba-ba. I don't know. That one sticks in my head. So that would be McDonald's. It takes a lot to create a great jingle. And when you do, can't get rid of it. And thanks, Meg. That's going to be in my head all day.
Yeah.
My brain went to Kit Kat, and then weird office reference there with how they talk about that Kit Kat jingle in the office.
Alrighty. That's it for the questions.
Great. Thanks, Meg.
Yeah. So that was a really great episode and such an insightful conversation with Heather. I loved how she talked about the evolution of podcasts and the complexity that comes now that it's moved from just a specific audio platform into audio and visual, something that we are very aware of in creating this podcast. I also really liked how she talked about measurement and the evolution of measurement, because I think that's so important for brands and marketers to be able to understand, what the space is going to do for their brand and the options that they have to measure that.
Definitely. Completely agree. And to see the evolution from the radio space, where it was spread to such a wide audience, and now in this podcast space where there can be really these sort of tight audiences that are niches, and that does open up something for brands and a space for them to engage in a different way. And I like that sort of idea around that, how brands can engage and have a more storytelling moment within the space.
Mhm. Agreed. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. Until next time, I'm Robin Legasic.
And I'm Kelly Miller.
And that's a wrap.